Hello and welcome, all friends and devotees of yoga and Buddhism. Today is June the 27th, 2019. It's Thursday today. We're almost at the end of the week. And also almost at the end of June. Okay, June 27, 2019, Thursday. Okay. I'm just going to proceed quickly and read you these words of wisdom from the Most Venerable Master Singyum. It's a treasury of wisdom I discovered a couple of months ago, and I decided to start work publishing them. And later on, maybe in my future research, try to develop, improve them to a point where one can do these consultations scientifically. There are scientific ways of doing it. Confucius did something like that. He spent his whole lifetime, working scientifically on ancient Chinese wisdom, which today we call the I Ching. Actually, I have several I Ching apps. my phone is littered with I Ching apps with which I do my consultations, wisdom, guidance, wisdom, and so on. We also have something similar to that in West Africa. In not just West Africa, in Nigeria, in the neighboring tribe to us, the Yorubas have that. They have what is called Ifa. Ifa is not just in Nigeria; it has gone as far as Cuba. They are Africans who came to the diaspora who are very, very, vast in divination, in divining Ifa. And what's interesting about Ifa is that my the vice chancellor I had at the University of Ife when I went there 1986 to 1990 studying engineering physics, our vice chancellor, Professor Wande Abimbola, from 1986 to 1990, when I was a student there, was a professor of Yoruba. It was a Babalawo professor of this Ifa divination. And what's more interesting than that is when I was studying in Boston, Massachusetts, Professor Abimbola was a visiting professor at Harvard University towards the end of the 90s, was a visiting professor at Harvard University. He was there giving lectures in African studies, and I attended several of his lectures. He was my old vice chancellor. It was a beautiful reunion. I loved to meet him when he came to Boston as visiting professor of Harvard. Then from Harvard University, he also became visiting professor in African studies at Boston University, where Professor Hutchison was, I think, head of department then. Professor Hutchison was there. These are very beautiful professors of African studies. Professor Hutchison, John P. Hutchison, was actually from Indiana. He was head at Boston University then. We're all like a small family there of African studies. It was a beautiful, nice reunion between me and my vice chancellor from Ife in those days. So Professor Wande Abimbola is the foremost scholar, certainly the foremost. Then he became a senator. He went back to Nigeria. He just did this, was a very clever person. He did this to upgrade his resume, went back to Nigeria and became a senator in Nigerian government after having been vice chancellor of one of the top schools where I went, Bafemi Awolowo University. Now became a senator. He was the majority leader in Nigerian Senate. So he's a professor, senator, Wande Abimbola, and very highly honored. He's a diviner on the Ifa. Ifa is the Nigerian form of the I Ching. So just to try to say there's a comparative business here, and they are kind of similar and then different. They are all divination systems. Confucius did the one in China, ancient China, and Professor Abimbola is very famous. He was my vice chancellor. So I really hope to kind of look at Venerable Master Singyum's work later on in life with an eye of I Ching, which, and the Ifa. So I'm going to be looking at Ifa and I'm going to be looking at I Ching, and I'm going to try to combine these oracular systems and use them as a computer programmer to try to advance these nearly 400 collections of wisdom systems from the great Venerable Master Singyum. Okay, so I'm just going to read to you a clip from these brilliant wisdom, which is for your guidance and for your fantastic. They're just treasures. I call them golden treasures of wisdom. So I'm going to spend a good part of my life working to try to systematize them using wisdom from the Ifa system of West Africa, which has gone all the way to Cuba and a lot. I know many people in the Caribbean, they use that Ifa system. It just came over. It's been so popular and I think in the United States too, it's very popular here. They have a lot of people who divine that Ifa system from the Yorubas. And then the I Ching also. Okay, I have the apps of that. Okay, I'm just going to proceed and read you some fantastic wisdom that we're talking about here. If we want to accomplish anything in this world, we must know how to handle situations, how to use money, and especially how to work with people's talents. Those who know how to do so may not be capable themselves, but since they know how to employ the skills of others, they can still benefit humanity and further social welfare. The following are 4 points on how best to work with people. 1, I call this the golden keys, but I need speed here, right? Speed. Okay, we must have an amiable attitude. There are times in life when we need to speed up, right? So, okay, this is the time we need to speed up. Okay, when we greet others with a kind expression, we will promote harmony in human relationships. However, if as supervisors we are always alienating others with our arrogance and authority, we will certainly not win the support or friendship of our subordinates. This is the age of democracy. Even presidents go to town hall meetings to hear the views of grassroots level. Okay, to hear the views at grassroots level. They have to display their concern for the average citizen in order to gain his or her support. Similarly, if we want to gain the acceptance and love of our subordinates in the corporate office, the most important thing we need is an amiable attitude, okay, a friendly attitude. People will find us approachable with even temperament, which is conducive to enhancing communication at work. 2, we must have a humble mind. Arrogance brings harm. Humility brings benefit. If we can be more humble, we will gain the respect of others, because those who respect others will earn their respect in return. What we should avoid is being an empty vessel that makes the most noise. As the saying goes, the more wheat ripens, the more their stalks bend. Therefore, a successful and wonderful supervisor will treat his or her subordinates with humility and broad-mindedness. Okay. 3, the third golden key. Okay, treasures from the Venerable Master Xingyun, founder of Fo Guangshan. Okay, and historically the source of Buddhism to Africa through the Nanhua, giant Nanhua Foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa. Okay, 3, the third point he makes. We must be willing to accept advice, guidance, okay? Some supervisors tend to be authoritarian and make decisions based only on their own views. They do not allow others to air their opinions. When others speak, they will easily dismiss their views, showing no tolerance for the opinion of others. In reality, a good supervisor will listen to his or her employees, encouraging their voices and praising their ideas. Moreover, he will discern sound advice and follow it accordingly. When supervisors accept ideas from below, the intentions from above can also be passed down and accepted by everyone. Finally, 4, okay, the fourth one. Master Xingyun has this brilliant way of expressing his advice or placing his advice in 4 categories. I call them the 4 golden keys, or the 4 golden treasures from the Great Master. We must have the capacity to tolerate others, he writes in 4. The ancients said, one can row a boat inside a prime minister. Actually, it is more than just ministers who need to have the capacity to tolerate others. The aphorism applies to all of us too, because how promising a person's career can be hinges on how much that individual can tolerate. Don't forget the rule I gave in one of my previous works. I call it the PET rule. PET. Always remember your PET, your moral PET. What is our moral PET? Patience, endurance, tolerance. Anytime you're trying to be very moral, and always try to get the right things done, and you are not sure what to do, always fall back to patience, endurance, tolerance. So I call it the PET rule. Patience, endurance, tolerance. P for patience, E for endurance, T for tolerance. Always fall back on the PET rule. If you are patient, you are enduring, and you are tolerant, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong. Impatience is the worst. Impatience is the worst trouble. And a lot of young people always have it. They fall quickly into impatience and make wrong decisions. They fall into errors quickly. I was a victim of impatience. When I was young, I was very impatient, and it cost me a lot. So as you mature, you now learn these lessons in life. I always have it as the rule, the 3-point rule: patience, endurance, tolerance. Patience, endurance, tolerance is the pet rule. I call it the pet rule. If you have that pet rule, you have this moral pet: patience, endurance, tolerance, you will never err for the rest of your life. You will never. You can't be patient and go wrong. You can't be enduring and go wrong. You can't tolerate human beings and go wrong. It's impossible to go wrong if you can tolerate people. If you are patient, if you are enduring, if you are tolerant, the pet rule, you will always succeed in whatever you do. Okay? Period. So always remember the pet rule. And let me finish Master Singyung's point number 4. Actually, it is more than just ministers who need to have the capacity to tolerate others. So he's talking about tolerance. This aphorism applies to all of us too. Okay, because how promising a person's career can be hinges on how much that individual can tolerate. Tolerance. Okay, it's part of the pet rule. Moreover, how good a person's human relationships are also depends on his or her tolerance. Therefore, as supervisors, we must have the capacity to tolerate others in order to mingle well with our subordinates, like milk and water, so as to gain their support. Now we are going to conclude this very quickly. Okay? In conclusion, Master Singyung writes, people have both strengths and shortcomings. As long as we know how to make use of their strengths, even brittle metal can be forged into steel. Even brittle metal can be forged into steel. The keys in making use of the talents of others not only apply at work, but also in the family, between parents and children, or between siblings. People who are doing well in their career, either in very large businesses or in politics, need to be skillful in employing the skills of their employees or subordinates. There are many methods available. Besides cherishing the talents of others and using them appropriately, we ourselves need to be well cultivated in our morals, so those working for us will respect and admire us. Okay? According to the saying, knowing how to read people is not as